Everyone, thank you. I just want to say thanks for coming out tonight and joining us for night two of our Kansas Basketball Officials Virtual Clinic. This session is brought to you proudly by Call the Game and Kansas Sports Officials Association. I really, truly wish that we could be doing this in person, but with the new official motto of 2020, it is what it is. Here we are. A little bit about myself. My name is Patrick Kreider. I've been officiating basketball in one way or another pretty much since I got out of high school. So it's been a couple of years now, from rec leagues to YMCA ball, intramurals, youth leagues, all levels of high school, and even some college ball. I currently serve as John's basketball coordinator for Call the Game, and I'm a board member of the Kansas Sports Officials Association. And I know I speak for the entire board of directors for KSOA and for John when I say we are absolutely thrilled that you guys are here tonight with us. We appreciate your effort to learn more about officiating. It's a testament to us as a family of officials that even in today's environment, we're doing what we can to continue to learn, to grow, and to get better at our craft. So thank you to each and every one of you for joining tonight. Tuesday night was night one of our virtual clinic, and we had about 270 officials that joined, and they were all across the state of Kansas that were in that session. We were honored to have Amy Bonner, Chance Moore, and our own Larry Hare sharing their wealth of knowledge, the game with us. And if you missed that session, shame on you. It was fantastic, but there is hope. Reach out to John Dehan or Ben Boothe or myself, as I believe that thing was recorded, so we can get you a copy of that. And before we go any further, I'm not sure if they're all on, but I want to thank a few special people for joining. Fran Martin, our Acacia basketball administrator and officials liaison. John Dehan is our Kansas City Metro Area Commissioner for the EKL, Sunflower, Kansas City Atchison League, United Kansas, and I almost forgot the Crossroads League. Mark Goodhart is the Commissioner for Central Kansas, Central Prairie, and the Western Athletic Conference Leagues. Danny McDormand, who is the Commissioner for the Tri-Valley League. Scott Goodhart, who's the Commissioner for the Heart of the Plains League. And last but not least, our very own Ben Boothe, who is our new Acacia Area Supervisor for the Kansas City metro area. Thank you all for your support. If there's any other assigners or area supervisors that I missed, hit that chat button and we'll get you recognized. We really, really appreciate Fran and the various league commissioners joining and supporting our efforts to help make our Kansas basketball officials better. As you've probably heard it many, many times, it takes a village, and it really, really does. And none of us could do this on our own. So we're really, truly thankful for the support that those folks provide us. So a very quick word about the rest of this evening, and then I'll shut up for a while. You're going to be hearing from some very good, seasoned veteran officials tonight, and it's all about communication. Newer officials might think, hey, I played the game back in the day, or I know the rules generally, I'll be fine. And you know what? They might be right for some levels, some games. But if your goal as an official is to improve, to work more or bigger or better games, and to be one of those officials who are really well respected, you simply cannot overlook communication. Good communicators will move up from lower to higher level games faster than those that aren't good at communicating. And good communicators will get selected for postseason at the varsity level before those that aren't very good at communicating. It's that simple. It's paramount to be a good communicator as an official. And I firmly believe that communication is just as important as knowing the rule book inside and out. So with that, I'll turn it over to Ben Boothe and Larry Hare to talk to us about in-game communication. So Ben, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and introduce Larry as well?
Sure. Thanks, Patrick. So like Patrick shared, my name is Ben Boothe. A lot of my perspective on basketball comes from my day job, which I think I'm in my 21st or 22nd year of being an educator. So classroom teacher for quite a while, a building administrator, and I'm now the director of community relations for the Gardner-Edgerton School District. So I found that a lot of skills that I've had to develop in my day job, I've been able to apply in officiating and feel like that served me well. So when I talk about a lot of these issues or items tonight, it's also coming from that perspective. especially some of the COVID material. I also oversee the health services department in our school district. So this is a nonstop conversation that bleeds over into a lot of what I'm doing right now. So, and then Larry is, man, I don't know. I think I'm the unlucky one in this, that I get to follow up of the five, or the four of us get to follow up the other three. So I don't know how I drew this. I don't know how I drew this slot. So Larry,
you're welcome.
Oh, good evening, everyone. For those I haven't met before, my name is Larry Hare. I've lived here in Kansas about 15 years. I've spent 18 years officiating basketball. Found a great passion for it along the way, putting my teaching degree to good use. Doing this, I've worked in college athletics. This is my 29th year working in college athletics, having worked at Boston College, Northern Arizona, the University of Connecticut, and now the last 15 years here at the University of Kansas. So my day job is assistant AD here, and I am considered a tier 1 employee around our student athletes. So I have lived in a bit of a COVID bubble since we returned to work in June. So a number of the discussions we've had with Ben and with John and with several of us over the last couple of months, especially the last couple of weeks, have been from the experience we all have had, whether it's fall high school sports or college sports. And with tonight's presentation, for those of you that also don't me, I'm not shy. I do enjoy chatting. I enjoy communicating. And in this area, it has served me particularly well. What you'll see tonight is a collaboration of a project that Ben had put together, and was kind enough to inject some details that I had developed along the way for another presentation, and a couple of clips that we've thrown in there as we will focus more a few COVID considerations, because I don't think you can hear some of those details enough as you send out those initial emails and communication to schools, as well as in-game, live ball, dead ball, as we carry you through. And Patrick and Don and the rest will kind of fill in between all of those spots. So create some links in the chain. So looking forward to it.
Okay, just to answer a couple questions real quick before we get officially started. One, somebody asked about the area meeting at Olathe West next Wednesday. That will be in person. Thankfully, we'll have that one in person. For people in our area, JC Harmon is Thursday night. And so that one we've confirmed will be in person. And then Olathe West has been kind enough to open the doors again on Sunday, and the Chiefs aren't playing. So some of you might consider coming to that one. That's at 4:00 on the 22nd. I think that is that Sunday. And the other shameless plug, for if there are people who are in years 1, 2, or 3, we are having a new officials clinic again in the Kansas City area. It's actually going to be in Gardner. We're having a new officials clinic, and I think we're getting close to 20, but I'm not interested in turning anybody away. So if your schedules have changed, or you have interest, or sure that, we're just have them email me. So, all right, Patrick, how long do we have? I forgot.
Your time is up, actually.
So I'm good. I'm okay with that.
It's been great.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I want to throw in one last plug too for your area supervisor meetings. KSOA has partnered with Keisha to provide a makeup meeting if you cannot meet any of Ben's meetings, and our makeup meeting will be Monday, November 30th at Olathe East High School. So you should have ample opportunities to get to an area supervisor meeting for area supervisor meeting number 1. Ben, Larry, you guys have at least an hour.
Okay.
All right, let's get started. Thanks, Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let me make sure I can share my screen here. All right, good there. See that, Larry?
Yep, now we're full screen. Good to go.
All right, very good. So I wanted to start by sharing with you what you probably already know, and that is there are the communication in any area of your life is obviously critical. So whether that's with your significant other, with your coworkers, with your employer, and it's just as important when you are officiating basketball, in my opinion. And so, again, probably as most of you know, the communication starts before you even step on the floor. So a week ahead of time, you should be emailing the host site, the administrator, visiting with your partners. And again, that's what Patrick and John Becker and Will Meyer will be going into more detail during their presentation, but just wanted to look at the big picture here. Then once you're on site, right, you're going to have a thorough pregame with your crew. That's that first sub bullet on pregame. And then pregame, once you walk on the floor with coaches, players, officials, the scorer, the timekeeper, then your communication shifts to kind of a different mindset once you're in the game. So when you communicate with coaches during the game, your crew during the game. And so we're going to go through those sections with each of those groups. And then there is post-game communication. So again, it may be with coaches, it could be with players, your crew, debriefing after the game is over. If you need to follow up with any kind of reports with the school administration or with your commissioner, or maybe you need to file an unusual situation report with Keisha. And so the gamut, right? So what Larry and I are going to focus on during our time are these two pieces. We are going to focus on COVID considerations, which we know you've heard about, but found some good information just earlier this week that we at least want to share with you, even if it might be a little redundant. And then the majority of our conversation tonight is going to be about once we step on the floor. So even though it's off the screen, the pregame with coaches, pregame with that official and scorekeeper, but then the in-game content. So that's our focus tonight. And then Pat, like I said, those three other studs are going to be focusing on the areas that we just took off the screen. I'm not going to read this to you, but I'll give you a second to read it. Right. And so that's hits on the point that I talked about at the beginning. Doesn't matter what you're doing, what aspect of your life, if you're going to be successful, one of the critical components is that you're able to communicate effectively. Okay, so you'll see on these screens, there's a lot of text and would encourage you to read it as we're going through them, but I'm not going to read them to you. Obviously, COVID, right, it can't be overlooked. And so I know that Fran and Keisha have put together a very thorough considerations document. And so I actually went through that today for the clinic this weekend and stripped it down to really the components that impact officials or that you need to be considerate of. It's nice to know everything that they might be doing to the players' locker rooms or what cheerleaders should be doing, but focusing on what this group and your safety wanted to touch on these. So when Patrick again is going to hit on when you're communicating with the site maybe a week in advance, there are some components that you're going to want to add to that, right? Is finding out if there's even going to be a shower available this year. And in the past, even if the building had one, it may not be available this year. And if it is, considering bringing your own towel, your own stuff, so that you're not having to rely on theirs. Also, depending on the county is going to trump Keisha. Right? So if based on the criteria or the recommendations that Keisha put out, for example, if the county requires masks, even though Keisha's recommended, the county requires it, then you're going to wear it. And I think you'll hear that from Fran, reinforce that down the road too. So most buildings, again, this is where my educator perspective comes in. At our schools, every person that comes in that building, whether it's a parent, a student, a vendor, they're having a forehead, a temporal scan. And so you probably should be considering doing that before you even leave the house. And like John said on Friday night, if you've got a fever, he doesn't care how late it is or how close it is to game time. You better let him know, because again, from my educator perspective, the people who have been selfish and tried to push through work, or the parents who have sent students with symptoms, the amount of work that it causes on the back end for us to trace, and then the hardship it causes on other families when they know they've been exposed, even if they don't end up having it, creates a lot of stress. And so it really is, as competitive as we all are, it's still going to be better for you to avoid that event. The other thing is, oh, good. Yeah, John, Larry.
No, it's
sorry.
all good. So just something to consider there. So many, I mean, I've lived here 15 years and many of you have officiated in the Metro longer than that. And you have habits of where you park and where you enter and what you do to go to certain high schools and all of those details. This is the year to not be on autopilot, as Ben just spoke to, as far as, is there an entrance that they want the officials coming in so you don't cross paths in other areas, and involving temperature checks and a certain time they may want you there. There are just considerations to take in where you go once you're in the building. John spoke to it the other night of, this isn't the time to see neighbors and be commiserating in the lobby or something like that. For if you know some of the parents that are permitted to be at the game, it's kind of get in the door, straight to the locker room, straight to the floor, back to the locker room. So just, they weren't bad habits, but we just built up habits over the course of time. And this is the year to kind of assess, wait a minute, I need to approach this a little differently. And it starts with asking some of these questions and then taking a little different path and a couple different procedures as you head to the locker room.
So, yeah. And yeah, just continuing on that, most schools are only going to have one entrance to limit, the need to clean later, but also exposure. And so, yeah, even if you've gone in the basement door over at BA's, that may not be an option. And so, these things are listed for you, right? Your safety, so that you can continue to officiate and not miss portions of your season. So, and I know that Keisha and John have hit on the pregame, that's going to, with players, is going to look a little bit different. And Larry made it, when Larry and I were prepping for this earlier this week, Larry made a great point, suggestion, recommendation, is that, if you're you're going to be in a school where your pregame with your partners is going to be tight, the space may be tight, is potentially having that pregame the night before on the phone or via Zoom earlier in the day, so that when you get there, again, the interaction is somewhat limited. So, yeah. And then that last,
as you may need to, if the official's dressing room is a little small, you may have to rotate through a changing area. So you have a separate meeting area, depending what different schools do, depending on spacing. So your normal ability to dress and talk at the same time may be limited. So consider that from a standpoint of you may have the same amount of time before a game, but you could be rotating through a changing area because that changing area isn't big enough and they've moved you to a classroom, et cetera, et cetera. So just, this is going to be a moving target, but keep that in mind. Take advantage of being able to communicate beforehand.
Right. And what I see based on a lot of locker rooms I've been in our area, I can see, I would assume, and John probably already knows, that a lot of schools, I would guess, are going to be moving those officials to classrooms. So there is plenty of room to spread out. So again, just wanted to share these with you to make sure, to protect you, to keep us healthy, because as you've heard, we are short officials and can't afford any of you getting sick or putting your own families or significant others at risk either. Nobody wants that either. So anything else on this one, Larry?
Yeah, no, we have covered it. We will continue to, but just some things to consider as we go.
Yep. Okay, so the next section of this presentation is broken down into those bullet points we had earlier. Pregame communication with the various participants, right? So pregame communication with your official timer and score, and then when you are visiting with coaches and players. And so please remember, a lot of these are based on what we have done. And so even though it may say, shake hands, or I don't know that it does, but shake hands, or have the captains in. Remember, some of that's not applicable this year. And so, but, just wanted to share the concept. So I know Larry and I probably have different approaches to both of these. I just know that when I go, I start by going over and I'm maybe not the disorder, but when I visit with the timer and the score, I double check a few things. One obviously is, are they having any issues with the clock or the arrow? Are they, when I look at the book and they've marked how many quarters a JV or freshman player played, I always ask, is this the number of quarters they've played? So if there's two, it says 2 in the book, or the number of quarters they have left. So I think it's, we don't want to get into confusion there. And, the bookkeeper or the scorekeeper knows what they've done with it. It just may be different from site to site. So I always try to confirm number of quarters they played or that they have left. And so that we don't run into any issues with the players running into, or coaches running into case down the road. Also, I encourage the scorer, the timer, that if they're having any issues to not hesitate, let us know if there are scoring issues so we can try to address them when they've happened or shortly after they happen versus down, at least recording in the book, down the road when everybody's memory may not be as sharp about one play or one bucket. Also, if there's a potential for a running clock, we like to visit about that early, or not early, but discreetly, because coach that already is getting their heads knocked in, they don't want to see us winding our arms or whatever to show running the clock. So, and then coaches and players, when I do meet with the coach, make sure you've got a card. John talks about it all the time. He gets calls or emails from coaches, ADs who say, man, I had a great official that I'd like to recommend for postseason play, but I don't know their name. And so I know that John in the past has been somewhat passive aggressive and not passing that information on because he's made it clear. He wants you to have a card ready for those coaches. And so, and a lot of my mentors that are on this call, the coaches know them. And so, and maybe they know me a little bit, but a lot of times I'm making those cards for the other people on the crew who may not be as well known. So, and then the last thing I will share with coaches is that, our goal, we're here to serve you, right? That's our responsibility. It's not about us, but we're here to serve you and the kids. And I like to keep it brief because coaches have heard it so many times, they kind of tune out. So I want to make sure the 2 or 3 points I do make resonate with them. So, Larry?
The important also for that table to remember their objectivity and remember that they are an extension of us. That their responsibilities involve helping us out during the game, and as Ben brought up, in establishing a relationship with them, it can go a long way to their level of care. Maybe not for everybody, but more often than not. The couple of things one thing that popped up in the chat here also is a reminder to go back in the day here a little bit and bone up on your 2-man because there's gonna be some 2-man games this year at all levels. And one other thing, just going back briefly, just thought of and confirmed with John, that if you do go into a facility and you're marched into a very small locker room space, John needs to know that. Schools are aware. They can't do it in the classrooms. They can't do it in the stands. They sure as heck can't pack officials into a room and say, well, this is what you got. So if there's an issue there, John needs to know immediately. And in the same way, like he said, that you can't call too late if you're not feeling well, that's an immediate phone call. You aren't not going to be told, hey, you got to sit here for an hour, masks or not, doesn't matter, inside of 6 feet in this little room. That won't be tolerated. So please reach out to John on that detail. But as Ben brought up here, coming back to pregame communication, get the table on your side. They'll go such a long way to helping you out during the game.
Right. Okay. Anything else on this slide, Larry?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Hey, Ben.
Yeah, Patrick.
I don't know how much of a pain in the tail it'll be, but I have some really good questions on the chat about what a pregame card should look like. You have some of the better ones I've seen. Is it somewhat easy for you to share one for everyone?
Yeah. Give me just a second here.
I will say in this particular light, We didn't do this in the state of Connecticut, but in this particular light, there are some overachievers out there that make some beautiful ones. I will say that I think I made one that fit rather nicely on an index card when I was doing high school games. That was professional and got the job done too. So there's varying levels, but some people do some really nice ones. Very impressive.
Not sure how cleanly this will show up since it's converting it to Google Docs, but it'll give you an idea.
There you go.
So again, this was a postseason game, but Keisha in I think it's in the officials handbook has some language right here that they prefer that you use, and so that's what I put in this area. And then they're not showing up right now, but I would have pictures of these folks. And I always make 4 cards, partly because the Avery template it comes on makes 4 cards, but 2 for the coaches. I always like to give 1 to the table. They seem to appreciate that, especially the announcer. I don't expect them to announce us, but if they want it, and then very rarely, Larry probably needs them all the time, but if there happens to be media there or radio broadcasts, we can give them a card also. So
Ben, I'm gonna email one to you also that I've got that is a real simple one done on Word and printed off on cardstock that you could show as we roll through.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah. Once I get it, hey Patrick,
just to show as simple as you can do it. But when you can do it, the more professional is, the more folks may remember it. Can't hurt at all.
Yep. And Patrick, I can't, like I'll do for you guys, I can't really see the chat right now, so I'm not.
I got
okay,
it.
Yeah.
Questions we need to answer, I'm happy to do that. So.
And I don't mean to hijack your guys' piece, but cards with pictures on it are really, really helpful for newer officials. Those coaches that know the Ben Booths of the world, they don't need his picture. But if Ben is working with 2 less experienced officials, they need to see your picture so they can put faces with names. It's very, very helpful. And it gets your name out to those coaches much better than just by voice.
Yeah. And a couple of great points here. First of all, it is a pregame card per coach. So if you're working in our traditional calendar of the girls JV, boys or girls varsity, boys varsity doubleheader, you need to make 4 cards.
Yes.
One to give each coach for the crew. That's a great question, but it is a card per coach with all the officials listed on it. And as Patrick pointed out, pictures along the way. Steve Moritz with a great suggestion of doing this even at the sub-varsity level, because it certainly can't hurt to put your name out there as you are progressing along the way. That's sure. And it gets you into the habit of doing it. Becomes part of your pregame preparations for the evening. Make your cards.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm happy to share that template, or maybe when Larry's talking, I'll jump back into my email and pull up that other card for you all. So, okay, so the next few slides. So now we're talking about in-game communication, and there's, again, different groups, right? So you had pre-game communication with coaches that look like one thing. Now we've got in-game with coaches, with players, with the table again. And so, again, not going to read all of these to you. Give you a chance to look at them. But Larry, you want to start on this one since you can start?
Yeah,
I'll come back in with anything else.
I
don't want to put you on the spot though either. So
no. But I'll say this too. There are extroverted people and introverted people. It's just the way of the world. No better, no worse. Just our varying comfort levels and strengths. And sometimes the extroverted people need to be prepared to dial it back a little bit. Sometimes more information is too much. But at the same time, those that are a little more introverted need to understand that there are opportunities you need to extend yourself and be comfortable. And a lot of it is in conversations with the coaches, because I think that's a one that we can't avoid in the course of the evening. So there's respectful manner to do it. There's how you carry yourself. There's the body language you give, the crossed arms or the the slouch position or anything like that. Amy showed it the other night with kind of an A-frame look, where all of those things go a long way towards the communication with the coaches as you read through this. The coach versus first name, there are many people on this call that can call Sean Hare Sean and have it be perfectly acceptable. There are people on this call that if they're on a game and they call Sean Hare Sean, Sean's going to look at him and go, who the heck are you? So that is one to be very, very careful as you go down that road. But there comes a time where there's a comfort level of saying, Sean, listen to me for a second. We are addressing this where it understands that there's a mutual respect there. That's one of those things that comes with time and communication and familiarity, but you have to be careful with it. And isolating each game, Ben mentions that here too. But this is where, man, the work is never done. And it is something that continues to take a great deal of work. And there's a little bit of guess and check. You're going to say something to a coach and it will totally diffuse the situation. It will turn the heat off the boiling pot and you'll think, wow, that was pretty good. Save it. Remember it. Put it in your Bible. And there's going to be other times where you think, I'm going to say this, you say it, and that coach does not have the ideal reaction to it and doesn't make it better, may make it worse. Okay, let's not use that anymore, or at least let's not use it on that coach anymore. So this is this is one that I think is an area that I still need to work on the most, and one that I think we all can get better at continuously, because there's two human beings communicating, and it can move in a lot of different directions. So, and that Ben always answer questions, not statements. Look at the foul count. Yes, I'm aware of the foul count, and we move on, versus asking us to watch a certain matchup, watch a certain player, how they're guarding, watch how a certain player is setting up. I think if we can keep it to conversations more than bellowing, yelling across the floor, and the name thing works the other way. What we don't need is someone yelling from one side of the floor on the bench to the C on the other side, hey, Ben, you got to watch that in the lane, because we know what's coming right after that. The entire student section, when we have students, is probably now knows your name. and that is, it has to be immediately addressed with the coach. Just like, coach, you're not yelling my name across the floor. You have a question, that's fine, but you're not yelling my name across the floor. And they will know it. So there's a mutual balance there to the use of the name. I'm not yelling some coach's name back at him whether I know it or not. If I have to say something, then it's going to be coach. If it's audible, and there's going to be a lot more audible conversations in the gym this year. So be mindful of that also with your coach communication. You are trying to maintain distance this year. You're trying to do it more than likely in several instances through a mask or a gaiter. But at the same time, your gym has 10% to 25% capacity, if at all. So everybody can hear the communication. It will be a delicate balance.
Yeah. And, there's some coaches that, even with good intentions, you're trying to explain something to them, you're never, in the moment, they're so worked up that you're never going to rationalize with them. You're never going to convince them of, or that you're right, or it's just not going to happen. And that's when you have to remove yourself, share what you need to share, and then move on. And I think the considerations that column there, the more experience you have, the more tough, difficult situations you've been in, whether it's your job or interactions with coaches, players, the more of a Rolodex you're going to build up of things that you can respond with, and they're going to work, or they don't. Just like Larry said, you take them out. But again, the more difficult situations you've been in, the better, the better it's going to prepare you for those future difficult situations. And then the other thing I would say about the considerations of how you respond to a coach is, you have to have a feel for the game. And so if the crew has blown a call, then I'm probably going to give that coach a little more, as long as it's not egregious and coming out on the floor. I'm probably going to give them a bit more of an ear than if we felt really good about the last call. And sometimes if they're not screaming, and we're standing side by side, then I might, be a little more willing to listen. Also depends on what they said. So like one of my mentors, Brian, I think I saw Brian on here. Nobody else in the gym heard it, but a coach said, you're, something to the effect of, you're sticking up for John Dehan because he's your boss, right? Well, nobody else in the gym heard that, but that was enough. We're going to protect our partners, and that was enough to step away and assess a technical foul. So a lot of it depends on how it's said, when it's said, and what it's about. So anything else on this one, Larry?
I had a thought and to follow up, and then don't, when coach, as you brought up, when a coach turns and walks away from you because they're done with the conversation, don't chase them. Yeah. Like the conversation's over and they've said their piece and they want to walk away. There's no need to chase. Let it end and move on from there.
Right. Okay. So we talked about in-game communication then with coaches. So now moving to in-game communication with your crew, the players, and the fans. And so with your crew, and we're really going to hit on late game interactions here in a little bit, but during the game, communication, both verbal and nonverbal, is critical. And so what I like to do is during that first intermission, even if it's for 2 seconds, so whether it's timeout or maybe it's first quarter, when there's really a break. And so even if it's just coming together at midcourt and saying, hey, we good? Are we good? Everybody's like, yep. Or we come together and say, you know what, I'm already seeing Blue set some we need to watch their screens, right? Because they're not getting set on those. And so just coming together, even if it's brief, to make sure everybody's on the same page. And then, like I said, some nonverbal with the eye contact. And then let's see, Chance, who you heard from on Tuesday, shared with me something a few years ago that I've never forgotten. It stuck with me, is, helping your partners. And one way that you can do that is if you are a way to stay engaged in the game is if you are a non-calling official. So if your partner's called a foul and they're going to the table, that's not an opportunity for you to just go brain dead. Right? That's an opportunity for you to help your partners and communicate with them. So going through the Rolodex of 5 things, the status of, okay, what's the status of the fouler, right? So having the number of who fouled. What's the status of the person who got fouled? What's their number, just in case you lose a shooter? What's the status of the ball, right? Are we shooting a free throw? Are we going out of bounds? What's the status of the coaches? There's one going ballistic and maybe we need to go give a little bit of an ear. And then what's the status of the players, right? Is there any chippiness going on? And so being engaged and being able to communicate that to your crew, just something that's stuck with me. And then in terms of players, it's best to not be sarcastic, even if you think they can handle it. Be approachable, but also they need to know that you are you are there to officiate and to adjudicate the rules, not to be buddies or. And then the fans, we've hit on this a lot in the past, but if you're having issues with the fan, don't go address them. Discreetly go find the administrator and ask them to take care of it. And hopefully if they're worth their salt, they will. So Larry, what do you think?
No, all good points here, and things that we've covered over and over, and not over and over, but that as we've gotten better in some areas, it has led to needing to be better in these areas of live ball and dead ball communication and understanding where your partners are. And we'll have a clip here for that as far as adjusting in transition that some of you may have seen before. And then we'll also have one just on not just in your nonverbal communication and your body language, but also in the utilization of your mechanics and being firm and effective and demonstrative, not showing off, but firm and effective, so your partners know what you have or that you are on it, that we have knowledge of what is going on, definite knowledge, so we can all feel better about a play that requires some judgment. So we've got a couple clips here coming up that will
Larry, do you want to set up this first one while I get the screen ready?
Yeah.
It's the young lady.
Yeah. Tell me, is it the WM? Which one's first? WNBA?
WNBA. Yep.
Okay. So the first one
this one, right?
is from
WNBA. Yep.
Yeah, the first one's from the WNBA a couple of years ago. So as we talked about being more aggressive in our flexing and our movements, obviously when you do that, as much as we talk about not flexing into a drive that's coming into you, not flexing into a shot, not flexing while the ball is in the air, The flip side of that is sometimes you're flexing and just basketball happens, and that could be a bad shot or a turnover that forces the lead to go back. And the crew having a feel for that, the C who thinks they're about to become the trail, and the trail who has seen the lead go and come back, and that communication between that C and T to make sure that we only have one lead as we get to the other end of the floor. And there's no official mechanics on this, but the first step in it is having great partner awareness and knowing where they are, because we're the only ones in stripes out there, folks. But knowing where they are so we can adjust accordingly. And there's different mechanics. There could be, the thumb that's like, I got it. If you're the trail and you're going long, I got it. Or if the trail hasn't picked up, the C might point at them like, no, it's you. Or sometimes I'll just put the hand out as the trail or as the new lead to kind of tell the C, hey, hold up, I got it. We're going to be all right. And just something like that to acknowledge before we have two leads at the other end of the floor, because not being aware of where our partners are isn't acceptable. We need to know that along the way.
Okay, you ready for me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
All the way first here.
What's that? First, we have the WNBA clip.
Yeah, you want me to play it all the way through here first?
Yeah, go ahead and play it all the way through. Watch. I don't have Amy's iPad here and stuff like that, but watch the lead. We'll run it through twice. You can watch, because the important ones here are the lead and the trail.
Here. Okay. So these two.
Yeah, I can't see it, Ben. I don't know if anybody else can, but I can't see it.
You can't see the video?
I can't.
Okay. Hold on just a second. All right, just a second here.
All good. The second clip, so we can go into it, is just a simple one on. There we go.
You can see it now?
No, but we got the presentation off the screen. Now we have a gray screen.
Okay. Anything?
No, sir.
Okay, let me go back to the presentation. I think I can pull it up a different way. It may just be a little choppy, but. All right, see that?
There we go. Yes, we can.
Okay.
Here we go.
All right. So sorry, so you said, so I'll rewind it. We're watching the lead right
So
here.
we're watching the lead here, and we're watching the trail. You're
Okay.
going to see the ball swung to C's side, and then the lead flex across. And just about the time they get to the S and sparks on the baseline, that ball gets stolen. And then from there, watch her adjustment, and then watch the trail's adjustment.
All right, I'll let it play through.
And the C picks it up. Here we go.
I'm going to be in studio for that one, so make sure you let me know about the varying smells in the arena. No, I mean, I'll be covered. Chicken nuggets appear, you will know.
Okay.
Okay. You run through.
Let me know when to stop, okay?
Yep. What nice position adjustment here from the C as the ball swings to them, so they're not standing behind the matchup, so they can get underneath it. And a little buffer here, and I'd stop. There we go. So now, go ahead, Ben. You can run it. Watch the trail here now, folks. Watch the trail. Just give a high sign, whether this is covered in pregame or not, because they're going to give the high sign. The C sees them. C pulls up. And you and I both know that's easier said than done. But go ahead one more time, Ben, if you want.
All right.
Pause it just as she flexes across if you can, Ben. I know there's a little delay.
All right.
Let it buffer here for a sec. Go ahead. There you go. So, and here is this flex complete? No, not. We are just halfway across. You can see the steel develop, okay? And as much as by the time we're human, so we can't exactly stop on a dime, that ball has changed hands by the time she comes across the lane and knows this flex isn't over. I'm going back. And she takes off, and then go ahead, Ben, and run it until the trail there on the far side gives a high sign. He knows right there.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. I hope you all saw it. We don't have to go back to it again, but that is just whatever the signal is, it's the, I got it. I'm going to go. Or if the trail hasn't picked it up, it's the C helping them out on that. So that's just, again, live ball communication. That is communication right there, but it keeps our primaries, it keeps us in position, such a strong look. So this one here, before we cue it up, again, we have some mechanics that are kind of our time to shine a little bit, to make sure everybody in stripes, at least, and the coaches know we saw this, we saw it, we got it. So it doesn't lead to questions. And so everybody understands. And this is great redundancy in this. This is from the bubble this summer. Yes, I'm a little bit of a nerd as I'm watching games. I think, ooh, great teaching clip, and pull out my phone and clip it and text John and Ben and think, hey, how about this one? So this is one just from observations last year where, yeah, we saw a tip, but we kind of keep the information to ourselves, where we don't share it, or we do the tip thing like real late, like, oh, I should probably let everybody know that. This is great job by both the C and the T, because of look where this occurs, that they both have an opinion and they clarify to one another that we have this, and it is clear as a bell. There's no guesswork. Everybody knows, the coaches know, yep, we have a tip. Go ahead and run it there, Ben.
Yep.
It's like they're playing violins. Go ahead and run it again. Watch the C, watch the T. Watch each time just to see what they've got. One more time, Ben. Okay. So again, that is a simple thing that we just sometimes think, oh yeah, that was a tip. They make it very clear. There's no guesswork here. If because of where that happened, if it opens to the C, so for that matter, if the trail wasn't sure, the C could be looking at the trail and giving a, yes, that was tipped, clear as a bell. Then the trail could mirror that, and we're clear on it as it gets into the backcourt. You can help one another there, especially as the way it turns, if you don't want to guess. I just thought that was a great job by both of them, being clear and emphatic, not little, not down here, clear as a bell. Get your hands up in the air, make sure your partners know, the coaches know that you saw it, it's a tip. The offense can recover it in the backcourt, and let's play.
All right, thanks. Look.
No questions on that. Okay. Go ahead, Ben.
All right. Okay, so moving on. So talked about in-game communication with the coaches, then this is about players. Oh, I guess that was the slide we were on. Let's see. Okay, so where we want to spend the rest of our, it looks like we've got about 20 minutes left, Larry, if
Yep.
7:15 was right, Patrick. So where we want to spend the rest of our time was about, where your money's really made, right? The late game situations, atypical situation, making sure that we get those atypical situations right, and how to communicate and move forward as a crew in late game tight situations. And so wanted to start by, if there is a timeout late, here's a list of items that we would discuss, right? Hit the possession arrow. Do we know which way do we go over the table and just confirm that the book is the same as the actual arrow? Confirming how many timeouts are remaining for each team, so we have an idea if a coach is starting to think like a coach. So are they going to call timeout if there's a bucket scored? Also the fouls, right? Thinking like a coach. Are they going to try to foul if they score after they score this bucket? Are they going to attempt to steal? Are they going to work the press first and then foul as soon as they get across half court? So to me, this whole slide, and Larry's got a lot more detail, but to me, all of the items on this slide are about thinking like a coach as much as you are an official.
The detail on the fouls to give too is not just, hey, the team's down, so they're going to use quick fouls to put us in a shooting situation, but it might also be the team that's up has fouls to give and will use those fouls to give to waste time to take away the advantage of take away the opportunity for the team that's down to recover. So that works both ways. Also on that, mentioned immediate foul, attempt to steal, is getting in the mind of the coach a little bit. Is it obvious that they're trying to foul here, or is it one of those situations where coach says, hey, attempt to steal the first pass after and wait for me to give you the signal to start fouling? Well, then we don't want to anticipate or guess, think, oh, they're definitely going to try to foul, and then put a foul on something that is marginal or not a foul because we anticipated, well, they're clearly going to foul here, where the coach may have enough time to, hey, let's try to steal first or wait for the second pass before we foul. So consider that too as you chat, especially as you get to know some of your opponents. Just because they're down 3 with 15 seconds left does not mean they're going to put up a 3 immediately. Consider that. And also, who are they going to? That is probably where our late game discussions go to the next level, when we understand what's worked for them, who's going to have the ball in their hands, what kind of play are they going to run, so we can be in position for that and just have a little bit of anticipation of the play may run this way. So we are ready to flex or adjust to get a great look. And then obviously having an eye to the clock, especially on a quick timeout after that made basket, and everybody having an opinion, especially those outside officials on that last second shot. But really, this is one that I invite you to, even during camp, during the summer, when we get back to having that. But I know a clinician stepping into one of my huddles at a camp during the summer and just listening, didn't offer anything other than just wanted to hear what you're talking about. And we covered like 2 of these points and came up and said, no. Like, that's basic. Where you're going to be better and know what's going on in a game is these understanding fouls to give, attempt to foul versus steal. What are they looking for, and what has worked? Where are they going to go? What have we been paying attention to basketball here and knowing what's coming next, and not knowing, but having an idea who the ball's going to go to or what they may try to run. Do they have a post player? Has this guy or gal been getting buckets all night? That ball's probably going inside if they need to. Is there, a stud back there? I remember when I was doing high school, it was Will Spradling at Shawnee Mission South. Everything ran through Will. So let's know where he is and get in position to officiate the matchups around him. Yeah. So those details to cover. This will make your end of game situation so much more manageable when you have a great feel for what's coming next.
Yeah. And, going back to communication with coaches, you have to take it with a grain of salt, but when they're breaking those huddles, sometimes they'll tell you what they want to do. Hey, we're going to foul immediately. And again, it may not play out that way. You still have to let it play out and see the play develop. But, oftentimes they'll tell you because they want you, they want you to be in tune with what they're doing. So the other thing that, when they are fouling, is the importance of getting the first foul first, because oftentimes if we start thinking, well, let's see if they can get through that, or can they get the steal, then it ends up into the second bang and the third bang, and then you've got all kinds of problems.
Oh, and also when you're looking for a coach to call timeout, if you are playing at one end of the court and have and your C is away from the table, and you have and so your trail is technically closer to the opposing bench, but who has the best look at that bench at the other end of the floor? Well, it's the officials away from the bench area, because you don't want to have a C or T trying to look down over their shoulder or turning around to see the bench at the other end. So those officials away from the table might even be the lead, because the lead is wide open to it, that understanding that basket goes through, have an understanding and have an eyeball to it, so we don't lose time, especially where inside of a minute the clock's still running in high school, so we can afford them the most timely timeout that we can give them.
Larry, you want to take the lead on this one?
Yeah, atypical situations. Again, this is like for those of for the football coaches in the group, the football officials, this is special teams right here. And to manage these moments where we'd love if every shot went in, we'd love if every foul were incredibly obvious and they were all common and they all occurred during a live ball. But that's not the way it works. So to be able to go through these situations, to understand when to slow down, and they're all listed here. But obviously, there's a big difference between an intentional and a technical based on who's going to shoot, and making sure the crew is in agreement before you go to the table. And also, we've talked about so many times, amongst the crew, you need a communicator, a rules person, and a slowdown guy or gal. And this is where that slowdown guy or gal needs to be on point. There could be a little emotion here. Let's grab that official before they go to the table, slow it down, and don't come with your opinion. You got an intentional, right? That was a technical, wasn't it? Nope. Just what do you got? And let them work through it, and then confirm it at the end. And then if there are details that individual just wasn't aware of, like status of the ball, or as happened to me last year, as we thought the play was square, but oh, wait a minute. 2 people came off that bench during all of this. Oh, the calling official didn't realize that. Well, that's not necessarily, that's why we're out there together, to help one another, to bring that information. Are we shooting? Who's shooting? Which end of the floor? And where we're going to resume play, and to whom, all based on some of those plays, excessive technical foul for an excessive timeout. All of those carry who's shooting and who's getting the ball, and there's adjustments to all of those. All of that needs to be covered as a crew before anybody goes to the table. And we aren't going to shoot any part of this until we're done communicating at the table, in case some part of this is somebody's 5th foul and we need a substitution. So as you've heard this from us before, we don't shoot free throws with our partners' backs turned. We just don't. We're going to figure out to get everyone back in and engaged. And it starts with really taking our time here. Yes, it always seems like you're doing it forever. Like during a monitor review, when you watch these games and hear people say, boy, this is taking too long. And I like to remind folks, we all know, anybody that sat and looked at a monitor and trying to get it right, that the meter's running. You can feel it thumping in your chest. So in the same, we know we've stopped the game. We know we have something that we need to get right. We're moving through it as efficiently as possible. We know it. The other part of this is, as you come together to communicate, and I think it's mentioned later on, put the team at their benches. Don't be afraid to do that. Get everybody that's about you and around you, move them away. If it's to the level where we need to get all 3 of us together and figure out what the heck's going on before we go too far, don't be afraid to put them at their benches so we can have a discussion and go comprehensively and efficiently to the table.
Taking your time and make sure you get it right. And like Larry said, even when teams are at their benches and crowd is, these are going to be in the game, high pressure moments, all the eyes on you. It's just going to seem like whatever you're talking about, making a decision about, is taking forever. When in reality, after the game's over, you put a clock to it or a timer to it, and maybe it was 1.5 minutes or 2 minutes. But another one of my mentors, John Moore, I think I saw him on here. He told me about an event. I may not remember all the details at Gardner Edgerton High School, where he was with his crew trying to figure out a last second play for 7, 8, 9 minutes. So take as much time as you need to get it right, because that's what's going to matter. That's the next day when coach calls John Dehan or reaches out to Fran. I assume that's probably going to be, regardless of how much time it took, did they get it right? Did they get it right? I guess that's what the first bullet was there.
Yeah, and agree as a crew. Yep. And even if the vote is 2-1, and you've acknowledged your your disagreement is noted. Understand that, like, own that. It's not like, no, we all felt that way. No, we went with what two people felt was right, and we got it right, and you just leave it at that. But if you got it wrong, if the two people that got it wrong and the third was right, it's important as you convey this to John that you own that also. That's only fair. That's only fair, and everyone's going to learn from it one way or the other. I can't say this enough, having lived through it twice, that you don't shoot free throws until all your business at the table is done and both your partners are ready to go. Don't think, well, I'll just move along. Anybody can shoot. Let's go. No, never, ever, ever, ever. Do not rush through that. Get them lined up, monitor them as the third official, and make sure and have everybody ready to go. But do not shoot free throws until everyone's back and engaged. Obviously, with the table, don't feel bad if you got to take out a pen and paper. Obviously, this year with a mask up. But understanding that something, you called a foul, the person chirped at you, you hit him with a technical foul. Okay, now that's 4. The common was the 4th, the technical was the 5th. And as you walk through that, tell me how many times as you say, well, I have a push on white 12, and then I have an unsporting technical foul on white 12, and the person doing the scorer's book is writing it down very diligently and gets through it, and kind of about 10, 15 seconds later goes, oh, does that technical foul count as a personal foul? Yes, ma'am, it does. Oh, that means she has 5. Oh, wait, hold it. That's why you take your time. You don't need free throws going on in the background with someone who's been disqualified. So take your time, get all those right. Hey, make sure they count as a team foul. If it was a bench technical, make sure it's recorded as an indirect to the coach, and make sure they note the time on all of those, because that's probably going to be something you're going to want to reference or ask about. And certainly Fran and or John, depending on the report that's put in, is going to want to know those things too. And it doesn't hurt. Go back later on as you're pondering this, as you go back to the table during a timeout and say, hey, would you mind reminding me when was that technical foul? Oh, it was in the 3rd at 1:20. Thank you very much. That's where that communication with the table can really come in handy. And as we mentioned the other night, your understanding of the rule book and be able to use rule book verbiage, not your own personal lingo. It can be confusing to the crew. It can be confusing to the coaches, and certainly can be confusing to the table. So being able to say by rule, whether good, bad, or indifferent, by rule, this is our course of action, and to be right, that's what is expected of you. A lot of the observations I make in the course of the season are protecting all of the officials and protecting John from a situation of, this is the type of stuff that someone's going to reach out to the supervisor. So how do we get better in those situations? And these are the situations that have a tendency to lead to phone calls and emails and clips the next morning. And many times it's because we either rushed through it or we gave our own personal slant on this, when being knowledgeable in the rule book was our best play, and made it more quotable and more credible.
And unfortunately, oftentimes, I'm sure we've all run into this, the coaches don't know the rules, or do players or do fans. And so when you can cite the rules, it makes it even more difficult. They might try, but it makes it even more difficult for them to argue with you or try to make the point when it comes across to them that you know exactly what you're talking about. So Larry put this slide together, and I'll certainly let him address it.
Yeah.
The one that I really liked on this slide, not having seen it before this week, was about the hair standing on the back of your neck. And so we've probably all been in game situations, moments where something just didn't feel right. Whether it was the sequence of shooting free throws or administering penalties or fouls. And it just doesn't feel right. And that's a good thing, right? And if you have that occur to you or occur, then do something about it. Because the worst case scenario, you go over and ask, and you're reminded of why you're doing it that way, and maybe it's correct already, but at least you've asked and you don't have regrets later that night or the next morning when you're having to answer to John or Fran because you didn't follow your instincts or trust your gut. And so I really like the way that's phrased.
And we've been in those moments, and this is where whether it's your buddy that you've worked with many times, because you're not questioning their integrity. It's the bottom line there. It's not about wins and loses. Let's just get it right. So it's your willingness to ask a question of a partner that you know well, or those that are a little shyer, being willing to ask a question of someone who's just a little more outgoing to say, hey, wait a minute, and not saving it till the locker room, not saving as the discussion goes and we get into the locker room afterwards. And I'm sure Patrick and his crew will cover this. If it needed to be brought up on the floor, bring it up on the floor. Let's not take it into the locker room and say, you know what, I saw that get tipped. No. We are going to talk about this on the floor. And yes, everyone's going to be watching, but let's have that conversation, because we can have it, throwing our mask on, pulling up our gator real quick, getting in cozy to confirm, hey, was there team control on that foul? Like, that ball was tipped, and then the offensive team pushed the defensive team. The other team hadn't established control, so the offensive team still had team control, so we shouldn't shoot this. Those questions need to occur. Hey, we had a kick ball during an AP throw-in, and so the arrow shouldn't change, right? Oh yeah, that's right. And it's not questioning. It's just, yes, you're right. And communicating that appropriately to the table, or knowing when or when we aren't shooting, shot release, status of the ball, all of those things is to be receptive, but also to be prepared to initiate and bring definite information. So as Ben brought up earlier, is being great dead ball officials, that when the ball goes dead, our alertness rises, and being able to manage those situations well, because let's be honest, that's traditionally another balance where a lot of the crap happens. And if we look down or start walking up the floor, things happen behind our back. So let's keep them in our vision, keep our body language to the floor. As I like to say, let them see and feel stripes. Tendency, we all behave better with our parents in the room than we did when they weren't.
Yep.
And sometimes that's just how it works for us out on the court too.
And even if it's just saying, I'm here, guys, I'm here, so they can hear your voice. And like Brian Watson said, when the ball goes dead, that's when we come alive. So,
yep.
Okay. This is really the last piece we had here. We're not going to address much of it because Patrick and John and Will are going to hit on some of these things. The only thing that I really wanted to say about this one is, when somebody's made a mistake or the crew doesn't feel good about the game, most of the people you work with, if they're worth their salt, they're already going to be beating themselves up about a missed call or something that's happened during the game where you feel like maybe you've had an impact on it that you didn't want. And so I found through my day job, and hopefully carried this over to officiating, that oftentimes feedback or critical friend type conversations are not best in the moment. And, they're beating themselves up or I'm beating myself up. I'd rather let it just simmer for a little bit and come circle back around in a day or two when everybody's emotions have died down and you can have a meaningful, constructive conversation about it versus just inflaming it potentially in the moment. So that's really my take on that. So I don't want to get into what the other guys are talking about tonight.
Well, and as you walk off the floor, get away from the players and coaches. Okay, they're as Ben states here, get away from the players, coaches, and clear the floor. There's no need to linger, and a level of graciousness is always appreciated. As the non-school administrator in this presentation, I will say it for Ben that thanking everyone for their efforts, especially this year, because high school and college sports have been and will continue to be somewhat of a Herculean effort from a logistics standpoint. And be mindful also that every place you go and touch when you enter these facilities likely has to be cleaned afterwards. So to be generally, everyone's great about this, but to be great stewards and representatives of all of us and how we take care of areas. Because now, like we knew we were in some offices and classrooms before, now we're more than likely definitely going to be in them. And other people are coming in after us, and they don't know how good we've been about taking care of certain things, and just reduce that by leaving no trace. I'll steal my son's Boy Scouts of leaving no trace that we were there, such that people feel very good about the environments they come into, because we all know our communities and a lot of our folks are just more sensitive about that than ever. And we need to be great stewards of Call the Game, KSOA, and basketball officials and referees in general.
Said. Patrick, thank you for, let me stop sharing my screen here.
There was a question, will we
Okay.
email a copy of the presentation? I believe Ben mentioned earlier, once he gets a moment. I will say, as Ben being Director of Community Relations for any school district right now requires hazard pay. So give him a moment to.
And Director of Health Services.
And Director of Health Services.
Not a good combination right now.
Quadruple hazard pay. So, but Ben will be editing both of these and posting them on the KSOA YouTube channel for review as we go forward, for those that either missed it or want to follow back up on some points. Because let's be honest, there's no way you're going to absorb everything that was covered tonight. But if you can take just a handful of points from this presentation and from the next one and bring a couple into your game, you're just going to be better for it. And the student athletes, the coaches, and your partners will be better for it.
Yep. Thanks, Patrick.
Nice job, gentlemen. Piggybacking on what Mr. Hare just said, it's important to note that everything we cover doesn't work for everybody. You go to camps in the summer, you go to clinics, and some clinician tells you something and you kind of shake your head and say, that won't fit my game. That's okay. This is not a cookie cutter. Everything we say fits everybody. Pick little nuggets that will work for you and that you can make work for you and put those in your game. That's the best you can do. And that's the best we could hope for.